Welcome to the Road to the Victory podcast. I am your host, Eduardo, and today we are honored to have Jorge Cervantes, a legend in cannabis cultivation, sharing his incredible journey from Ontario to Mexico and California and beyond. George's passion for cannabis has driven him to become a pioneer in indoor cultivation and out of the iconic marijuana cannabis horticulture with articles in 12 languages and columns in High Times and subscripts. George's expertise has reached millions. Join us as we explore his journey from clandestine cultivation to becoming a world-renowned authority on cannabis cultivation. Let's dive into the fascinating world of cannabis with Jorge Cervantes. Hello, George. Welcome to my podcast, The Road to Victory. Thank you for joining us today.
Hey Eduardo, thank you so much. I'm really happy. Yeah, it's kind of weird. We had the time thing. It's 10 o'clock here in Spain, or 10 a.m. or almost 11, 10 minutes to 11. And in New York, where you're based, it's
Yes.
like 5 or 6 in the morning, you know? It's
Yes,
really
it
early.
is.
Nobody gets up that early. I'm really glad you got up this early.
Thank you so much
Yeah,
for
and
being
you're
here.
having coffee. I've already had my coffee. I'm good.
Thank you for your time. You have spent nearly 4 decades researching and writing about cannabis cultivation, earning the nickname the Guru of Growing. Your journey in this field began many years ago, and we are eager to hear about the experience that ignited your passion for cannabis cultivation. George, could you share what cannabis signifies to you personally?
Yeah. Well, it all started a long time ago. I was a lot younger. Hell, I'm 70 years old now. I still can't believe
Oh,
that. That's an
still,
old guy. But yeah, it's been actually I'm entering my fifth decade. Fifth decade. The
fifth
decades.
decade.
It's and that's public. That's just the public part. I had other times I was before that I was doing like everything really illegal, but now it's not. So that's good. Yeah, but my first book came out in I published it myself because nobody else wanted to publish it. It was a big war on drugs going on back then. My whole life has been dealing with this screwy war on drugs that the United States started. Um, yeah, but that was 1983, and that's when I lived in Portland, Oregon. And yeah, the first year was that's when well, actually, I had just come back from school. Like I've been to Mexico. Went to University of the Americas, Universidad de las Americas in Puebla, or actually closer to
Really?
Cholula. Yeah,
Oh,
and
really?
actually, there is a grow store in Cholula now. I was really pleased to learn that. Yeah, I met the guy. I can't remember his name, but yeah, he sent me photos and everything. Every time one of my friends goes to Puebla, el estado de Puebla, man, I send him over to the grow store.
Yeah,
It's been a hell of a long 40 years, you know.
40
I
years.
Yeah, 40. Well, no, actually, this is 41 years now today. And
41
that,
years.
like I say, and that's only the public part. Yeah.
Your book, Marijuana Cannabis Horticulture, has become a go-to resource for growers globally. What motivated you to write it? And can you share some insights into your creative process while writing it? How did you approach distilling your knowledge and expertise into a comprehensive guide that has become a benchmark for the industry?
Yeah, well, actually, what happened is I was dealing a lot and moving like large amounts up and down the coast. But you know, about every my rhythm was about every year I'd have like one big problem and it got pretty scary. So I decided, well, I can write, and I could, and that's right when indoor growing started in the Northwest, because indoor
Okay.
growing started really in Oregon, Washington, and Vancouver, or well, the BC, British Columbia, and but nobody seemed to know that much about it. There was a couple of books out already. One of them was by a good friend of mine, Steve Murphy, or he called himself Murphy Stevens. He had a book, but it was a little bit limited, and not many people knew much about indoor growing. So basically, what I did is I had already a big history of cannabis cultivation, And I learned how to grow indoors, and I put together the metal halide lights, which were the first ones, and then later HP sodiums, high pressure sodiums. I took them and joined them with gardening, with indoor gardening, and it made a big difference. It really did. But the first year that book sold, it was Indoor Marijuana Horticulture, the first one. It sold 6,000 copies, which was a heck of a lot of copies because I only sold it in Washington, Oregon, a little bit in California, and then Vancouver, BC. But I couldn't get up to Vancouver too well because it was still prohibited. So just a few of them went up there, and we had to smuggle them up there. Yeah, that was a real problem. And it really didn't take off. I mean, there was people growing indoors, but we had a real big drug war, a war on drugs, yeah, for basically the last, well, it's from 1970s all the way uh, through the 90s. There was a heck of a problem. Yeah, I used to have to wear a disguise. I think I got a picture. Do I have a picture? I think I have a picture of me in a disguise. Somewhere here. Yeah, I got
Shows.
Yeah, guys.
Oh, that one.
Yeah, I had dreadlocks, a dark hat, a beret, and everything was dark. And then my
Así,
real name is George Van Patten. And so I
George Bush.
changed it. But my nom de plume or nombre profesional, professional name is Jorge Cervantes.
Cervantes.
And I figured, who in the heck's going to look for a guy that looks like me named Jorge Cervantes? Nobody. So it was like,
It seems
yeah.
totally different from the other person from the other person. What motivates your
Oh, yeah.
Cervantes? What motivates your Cervantes to continue teaching the world how to grow cannabis despite the recent challenge you faced during your career?
Well, yeah, it's really interesting because I could have done a lot of things, you know. I
Yes.
was a good grower. I was definitely a good grower, but the real money back then was in dealing, and I was okay at dealing, but not that good. I was just too nice. And yeah, and one of the main problems too was well, it was pretty scary because you know the police already knew who I was. I had like several problems early on, and so I was already on the short list. So I decided to write because I knew I could read and write books. I worked at a newspaper office. So that's when I started my own publishing company. And since I started that company in 1983, I've published over 50 different books in 11 languages. Yeah. As a matter of fact, you can get this book here, right here, Cannabis
Where
Encyclopedia.
we
You can get this for free. It's 600
where,
pages, and
that's
you can
awesome.
get
Where we can get it?
in marijuanagrowing.com. Yeah,
Oh,
that should be put in the credits. Marijuanagrowing.com because it's marijuana with a J, not with a G or a H like they spell in Mexico or other places in the world, but with a J. And yeah, marijuanagrowing.com. And it's in 11 different languages, 11 languages, more than
then your
this.
figures.
Well, that's a lot.
George,
Yeah,
George,
yeah, yeah.
You will travel extensively researching and sharing the latest techniques in cannabis cultivation. What have been some of the most memorable moments or discoveries on your journey?
There was quite a few things. The biggest thing I learned was uh, first thing I learned was people usually didn't know what they were talking about, and they were very poorly informed. And the United States government and other governments did not help anybody with good information. All of the governments lied. They lied to us. That was my first big revelation. And that came when I was about 16 years old. I learned that they were lying to us, and that's when I knew I had to do something about it. So that was the first one. The Probably the second biggest one is is to tell a male from a female plant, because we had no idea what the heck a male and a female looked like. There was no information back in the 70s and 80s. Uh, and then later in Mexico, actually it was in Mexico when I went to university, I learned about the sinsemilla. Sinsemilla, well,
What
it
is
means
that?
with no seeds. It has no seeds in it. And that's a female plant with no seeds. And what happened was in Mexico,
Yes.
they already were growing that way back then. And the Mexicans are smart because they keep all the good cannabis for themselves. You
Where do
know,
you yeah, where do you think is the best cannabis from?
the best cannabis, oh, it's all over the world
All
now.
over the world.
You
Yes.
you can find it, yeah, as long as it's well grown. Everybody has, like this personal desire or personal feeling that it's like they have the best cannabis or my country has the best cannabis. There's excellent cannabis in California, for example, and Oregon and Washington too, because they have a long-standing culture there. But now in Spain, where I live, we have a lot of good cannabis here, and also everywhere in Europe. So it really depends on how well it's grown, because there's really good growers everywhere in the world now. I'm really impressed. Yeah, and two, I got to give credit to a lot of Americans that have gone to other countries and help them grow, because there's and well, those guys, Americans, also there's good British and good Dutch, French, Italian, and German too. Germany just legalized. They're going to be
Yeah.
April 1st. April 1st is going to be legal there for 3 plants. So yeah, I'm seeing really good
That's
cannabis
very cool.
everywhere in the world. Yeah.
What
Um,
are
um,
your how do you see the evolution of cannabis cultivation techniques since the early 1980s to the present day? What advancements, innovations, or shifts have you observed in the field over the past 4 decades?
okay, there's one of the biggest revelations for me has been the internet, because
Yeah.
before you could only buy or sell books and buy books and magazines, and those are very, very limited. You see, a good year for me, I would sell 50 to 60,000 books. Well, heck,
Oh, that's
I can do a post on Instagram and get 50 or 60,000 hits on that. And that's
good.
just me working very little bit. But making a book is much more difficult. Uh, yeah, and also people have to buy it, they have to read it. But everybody in the world has one of these, cell phone now. So you can
Yes.
take this, in fact, you can take this book here, the Marijuana Horticulture, and access it on your cell phone. And so you've got a whole library right here in this little book.
Yes.
But this book here, it weighs like 2 kilos.
Yeah.
It's just like, so yeah, that's probably been the biggest thing, and the direct access to information. It's really been huge, huge thing. That's number one, I would say, over the years. Second thing, if you think about indoor growing, um, just taking a light bulb and taking it from, like, pointing it up and down like this and turning it to the side. This is something I did a long time ago, like 20 years ago at least. But doing this just because before all the light bulbs were like this, because that's the way you see them up in the fixture here. Well, when you take that light, but that means that most of the light has to be reflected. off the side. But you turn it this way, 90 degrees, half of the light is direct, and it makes it 40% more efficient. 40% more light comes out of the same
Just
point.
one movement, you get
Yes,
40%. Well, that's very
huge. It's huge.
huge.
And most people didn't understand that. Another thing is if you take garden beds and you put them on rollers, so that you open a path here and then you close it. You only have one path in your whole grow room or your greenhouse. That'll increase production by 30%. And I didn't invent this. I mean, other smart people invented. I just made it possible. I just shared the information. Yeah, those were big things. Other big things have been a real big change in genetic stuff with seeds. But now with seeds, what's happening is, well, for example, not this year, but last year, I was a judge for sativa flowers in at Spannabis, the biggest trade fair, the biggest cannabis fair in Europe,
Yes.
and second biggest in the world. And all of the sativa flowers, pardon, they smelled and tasted like Kush,
Like
like an Afghani,
yes,
Kush, definitely an indica. It's like, what the hell? They're
what?
supposed to be sativa. Well, they did that because nobody really understands genetics very well. They may say they do, they may talk, but they really don't understand it. It's quite complex. Yeah.
As the other plant, if it's another plant, what was the problem there?
Oh, well, the problem is the genetics, the genes. Everybody's crossed things with other plants. And as you know from reading well, several of my books, they're very specific on true breeds, true breeding plants, and F1 hybrids. And people are saying, they never get a true breeding plant. It's that plant is unstable. And in order to have a true breed, it takes at least minimum 4 generations, but more like 6 or 7 before you can get a true breed. And you take a male and a female and breed them together, and then true breeders. And then from that, you get an F1, which is first generation number one. And those plants have got what's called hybrid vigor. But what's really happened is most people are like 95, 99% of everybody breeds plants, and they never stabilize them. They never get them to the true breed stage. They just continue to cross them. And the genes are mixed together and nothing's stable. There's very few things are stable. So that's on the bad side. But on the good side, and that's why, well, yeah, and that's why they have pheno hunts instead of genotype hunts, because genotype you can define, you scientifically define it, right? Well, you can with pheno hunt, but genotype is a much better definition usually, or well, 99% of the time. And but on the good side, all of the breeders, quote unquote breeders, they've done a real good job of increasing the THC content, increasing the flavonoid content, and also increasing the terpenoid content, and also making the plants resistant to diseases and pests. And also the plants produce much better now. So those are the good things. So it's been good and bad. You have to really weigh everything.
George, what are your thoughts on the current legalization and regulation of cannabis in different countries?
Oh man, I just hope it happens really fast. Europe, for example, there's legal cannabis in just a couple of places, and it's more legal in well, Malta, as you know, it's an island in the Mediterranean and Mediterranean Sea off the coast of Italy. And so it's legal there. And I got a good friend, Javi. Actually, he was born in Mexico, Mexican guy, really
Okay.
good guy. Yeah, he's got a big project going over there, excellent grower. And the other place that it's legal, 100% legal, well, not 100%, it's within boundaries, is Luxembourg. And Luxembourg's a small country. It's about this big, you know. I think there's less than 1 million people that live there. And then just recently it became legal, or it will become legal in Germany for growing at home three plants. And you can have on your person 25 grams and 50 grams of flowers at home. So that's a huge step because Germany, you know, they're like 90 million people. They've got more money and they're the biggest country in Europe, so it's very big. But see, like in the Netherlands, for example, in the Netherlands, it's tolerated. It's not legal, it's tolerated. Here in Spain, it's tolerated and it's not legal. If you're found with it on smoking it on the street, or if you get stopped at the traffic for anything and you have it, you get a fine for like 600 euros. Yeah. But at the same time, we have social clubs where you can go in and give them a donation, and they will give you a prize, which is always like a gram of cannabis. So yeah, so they go around it, and then there's other legal licenses. There's I don't know, at least a dozen licenses here in Spain where you can grow cannabis for medical reasons and research. And that's also fairly common in Italy and also Portugal. Actually, those two, especially Portugal, is ahead of Spain, and same with Italy. And Germany, I don't know so much about legal cannabis there. I know one of my friends, Leon, has a research project he's doing at the Humboldt University, which is in Berlin. Um, yeah, but you know, there's other places like France where they smoke more than anybody else in Europe, and it's not
That's
legal, you
cool.
know. Yeah, so we'll see what happens. And then I just got word from one of my friends in Thailand,
Yes.
and he translated a bunch of what the government's communique was for the end of their first legislative session, and nobody's introduced a cannabis law. So that's a good thing because no news is good news. And one of the things they said at the end was, we have more important things to work on than cannabis. You know, like important things like climate change, government politics, monetary policy, healthcare. Those are important things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
George,
So we'll see. We'll see what happens. The main thing is it's got to change with the United Nations has to change the single treaty convention of 1961 that puts cannabis as well like a Schedule 1 drug, which means it has no medical use whatsoever, which we know is a lie.
George, we almost done. George Cervantes, you will have amazing life traveling all over the world and having incredible experience that will make even the most experienced adventurer envious. With all you've been seen and done, you must figure out what's important in life. Can you share with us your philosophy of life?
Oh man, be good, be honest, share information, and everything comes back to you, you know. It's you may not be, I'll never be rich, but that's okay. I could have been rich many times, but I have several friends that are super rich and they're not always so happy, you know. I'd rather be happy and have the respect of the entire world. That's important to me.
That's cool.
And,
Thank you so
and, and
much.
share information. That's super important.
Cool. George, thank you so much, George. George, as we bid farewell to your time on our podcast, The Road to Victory, we want to express our deepest gratitude for sharing your wisdom and passion and expertise with our audience. Your expertise and dedication to cannabis cultivation and education have inspired countless individuals, and your legacy will continue to shape the industry for years to come. We've been honored to have you as a guest, and we wish you all the best in your future endeavors. To our listeners, thank you for tuning in and being part of our journey. We hope you enjoyed learning from George as much as we have. If you want to continue you want to continue following George's work and stay updated on the followings on the latest development in cannabis cultivation, please follow him in social media, Jorge Cervantes Official, and subscribe to his YouTube channel, Jorge Cervantes. Thank you for being part of our journey. Stay connected by following us on our YouTube channel, The Road to Victory by Eduardo, and subscribing to our Facebook page, The Road to Victory. We'll be sharing updates, exclusive content, and more. Thanks for tuning in, and we wish you all the best in your personal road to victory.
Sure thing. Remember, plant more, plant today, and plant tomorrow, and share information. It's a good deal,
Thank you
man.
so much.